see. I can't hold it back. I can't hold it back, no. Come on, check me out now.
All right, so I believe we are now live on Facebook. Welcome to the Lifestyle Over 50 Facebook page and our live stream today. Excited to be with you, excited to bring you another guest. A couple of weeks ago, we had Dan Shipman was talking about working out and physical athletics and lifting weights and how important that is for people over 50. I've got another guest, still about health and fitness. We're always going to be about that. But in a different direction. And this is a gentleman that Shirley and I have known for, well, almost 2 years now. And he's done a lot for us, and we'll get into that story here in just a little bit. But excited to introduce this gentleman. He's extremely, let's just say, extremely knowledgeable in his area of expertise. And he's a very busy guy as well. We were trying to get him on last week. He's one of the busiest, hardest working guys that I know, and what he works on is helping people through chronic illnesses. So he's going to tell you his story today. He's the founder of Healing the Body and the Thrive Lifestyle Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, from Vancouver, British Columbia, Derek Henry. Derek, how are you?
I'm excellent, Dale. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to have you on. I know we've been working on this for about a month now, trying to coordinate our schedule. So it's really great to have you. And I'm excited for people to hear what you have to say. And, you know, we've written some articles about you and tried to get the word out there about you. We're always telling, you know, our friends on an individual basis about you, but this is really, you know, going to get the word out to the people, at least that we know and that follow Lifestyle Over 50 about you. So why don't you, you know, start off and introduce yourself in terms of, you know, how you got into doing what you're doing and how you ended up helping so many people with chronic illness.
Well, I stumbled across this field in kind of, let's say it started in an unfortunate way, where I was 30 years old and I became struck by a number of different illnesses. And at the time, I was actually trying to actively take care of myself, but apparently I wasn't doing enough. And my background, where I grew up, you know, on a conventional farm and the kinds of foods that I ate and a number of the toxicities and things that happened to me early in my life had set me up for a disastrous health failure at a very young age, at age 30. And at this time, this stuff kind of came on suddenly. So it wasn't something that I really saw creeping up on me. It just really kind of jumped out and just really smacked me in the face one day, late December in 2004. So this was 16 years ago that this started. And at the time I wasn't sure what was happening, but it was something very simple. You know, I was just doing a simple workout in the basement, just using elastic bands. So nothing strenuous whatsoever. And I was young and felt healthy and strong at the time. I worked out a lot at the time. And a couple days after this workout, my hands became extremely sore. And I thought that's a little bit odd for the kind of work I was doing for my hands to become that sore. And the issue didn't go away. And weeks later, I was still dealing with this issue, and it felt like I was dealing with arthritis in my hands. So the most natural thing for me at the time, not really knowing what to do next, was to visit a physiotherapist. Asked her, you know, what's going on here? What's happening? She said, this really isn't normal for someone, you know, of your age. This is something that definitely needs to be fixed. And, you know, I went through some physiotherapy and things like that. And although it helped really, you know, minorly, didn't really get to the root of my issues. So all during this time, I was going through kind of a stressful period. I was in a high paced job that I was enjoying, but it was stressful at the time. So I didn't go to a doctor, didn't go to anyone. And I wasn't really a person to go to doctors in the first place anyway. I was trying to avoid all that because I knew probably what would come with a doctor visit, and I wasn't really going to be into that. So I kind of let it go, and I was hoping that things would change, and slowly but surely things got a lot worse. It went from my hands, started to travel up my arms, started to get into my neck. And then eventually, within about 3 or 4 months, it felt like my whole body was basically on fire. Every area of my body felt arthritic. Felt like I had fibromyalgia. Everything was in pain from top to bottom, literally. And some of my signature points were my neck was so sore and so tight that I literally could only move my neck probably 10 to 15 degrees any one way. That's how tight it was. I'd have to lay down during the day because it would get so tight just from working and sitting down on a day-to-day basis. And eventually I had to succumb to the idea that I got to go to a doctor. So I did. And I ended up getting some blood testing done and went back, and my worst nightmare essentially came true, where he diagnosed me with a chronic disease, in this case, rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, but he wanted to prescribe me with medications and things like that. And as I mentioned before, I had a bad vibe about doctors and about medications and about the whole system. I just didn't want to be there, didn't want to do it. I knew where it was going to lead, but I didn't know what else I was going to do because I had no clue what to do next. So anyway, I reluctantly took some medications for a little bit because the pain was so severe. Literally talking about things like I had so much pain going through my body, but a good example other than the neck pain was I couldn't even open up doorknobs. I had to actually use my elbow and things like that to open up doors because there was so much throbbing arthritic pain running through my hands that I couldn't handle it. And this is, as you can imagine, dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, I couldn't escape this. It wasn't something I could escape. And taking medications actually at the time helped a little bit, but often it would make it worse. It literally felt like acid was running through my veins. There was just a lot of things going wrong, and I knew it. And although I wasn't really worried, I was concerned of what I was going to do next. So I took the medications for a little while, reluctantly, and I dealt with this for a while. And then eventually I made it to a massage therapist who helped resolve some of the issues, started to back it off a little bit. But I dealt with this for a period of almost 2 years of dealing with this kind of pain. So you can imagine being 30 years old, wanting to be healthy, actually, at the time I was actively doing, and have this happen to me. I was very distraught and devastated that I was actually trying to take care of my health, and it went completely south on me. But in 2017, I managed to find an article that was sent to me, and it was an article on broccoli that was sent to me by someone who wanted me to consider it because at the time their father was going through cancer, and it was talking about how broccoli could be anti-cancer. And thinking about this was 13 years ago. This wasn't information that was being widely distributed at that time. Anybody who you talked to that thought broccoli could beat cancer would call you crazy, because and even now that could still happen. But now we're a little bit more, we've evolved a bit in terms of food and its role in our life and how they can heal things. And I've proven that, which we'll talk about a little bit with the Thrive program. But I end up reading this article, and I thought, this is fascinating. This is something that I can really get into. This is what I want. I want a way to resolve this through how I eat and how I conduct my lifestyle. So I started reading a lot of more articles on this page, and I basically went down the rabbit hole. Dale, is what happened. I went down the rabbit hole of health. This whole new world opened up to me. I'm like, what is all this stuff?
And
but I was
a
fascinated.
big rabbit hole.
It's a huge rabbit hole. And I went deep, as I usually do. As I always tell people, I don't do things half-assed. I use my full ass. And when I was doing this, I went down the rabbit hole hard. And I didn't stop. And I just went and I started reading articles. I was reading how to use nutrition, supplementation. I started to, incorporate this into my life. I started making smoothies. It was on the first thing, started eliminating toxic things out of my life. And then I came across a few supplements at the time that really helped me. One that actually helped me get off all prescription medications that I was taking at the time, which was a big win, of course, that managed to probably kill my pain like 90%. So it really backed it off, but I knew I had a lot more to go. I wasn't normal. Still, things were far ways, but things were manageable at the time. And I really just continued down this route. Over the years, I just continued to retweak my diet, my nutrition, my supplementation, my mindset, my habits. I just kept on little by little. I was pulling things out that weren't helping me. I was putting things in that did help me. And then after a period of 3 years, I felt significantly better. Like I felt like I was out of the woods, basically, how I felt at the time. But I knew I wasn't quite done yet. So, for another couple of years, again, I went hard. I was learning new things. There's a lot of data out there, a lot of information out there. And even compared to now, where the information is overload, there is so much information and trying to discern what's fact, what's fiction, what works, what doesn't. Back then, there was relatively little websites and stuff to follow and books to read, which was a good thing because I didn't get too distracted. I was following someone who really knew what they were doing, who obviously had the health I wanted. So I continued to follow them because I knew that if they had what I wanted, I should just do what they did. And that's exactly what I did. After a period of 5 years, it was about 3,500 hours of research, of me looking at things online, reading books, reading articles, all different kinds of things. About $35,000 in supplements and therapies alone. Again, I was doing all that kind of stuff. I was doing chiropractic, massage, I was doing Reiki, I was doing all kinds of things. I tried almost everything. Acupuncture. I had basically was throwing everything out there. And all these things were helping me legitimately in different ways. So I spent $35,000, 3,500 hours, but I eventually felt like I had resolved all of these health conditions. And I felt significantly better, but there still was a little bit more to go. I had realized later, there's still a bit more to go. So I spent another 5 years doing more things, going deeper, really starting to go deep inside the body, trying to get at the root, the source of what the issue was. I basically resolved all my symptoms, but I still hadn't rid the source that had caused the symptoms out of my body yet. So I spent 5 more years doing this again, reading more material, trying more things, experimenting. I was basically a lab rat in my own home. And this is something I dedicated my life to. This was my second job, for lack of a better way to put it. I spent hours a day on this every day, learning. And for me, it actually was fun in a kind of a weird way, twist away, because I was feeling bad, but it was fun for me because I was resolving things. I was understanding how the body worked. It was really what I was meant to do. So after that was done, I finally came to the realization that I had basically completely healed my body. Where I had been back, now, whatever it was, 13 years ago, since I actually had started the whole process of getting healthy, I realized that I actually rid my body of all the diseases that, or disease conditions, let's call them, that I was ravaged with. And in the end, looking back, some were diagnosed, some weren't, but I was dealing with probably 13 core different chronic disease conditions that I had to eliminate that were primarily stemming from digestive issues that created autoimmunity issues, which create things like hypothyroid, candidiasis, leaky gut, skin conditions, a lot of aches and pains I mentioned, like arthritic type pains, brain fog, adrenal fatigue, liver problems, pancreatitis. I had lots of kidney, urinary issues. You name it, I had it, and I eliminated it. So that's all to say. It was a long and epic journey, and every day, I still do the things that I need to do because of how fortunate I am to come out of this. Not only to come out of this, but now to be able to share not only the knowledge I gained, but what I say is the wisdom that I gained, because knowledge, you can get knowledge from books and reading things. Certainly you can. But I learned through this process that wisdom is a completely different thing. It's a whole new level of understanding that happens. And it only could happen because I had to go through the fire. I had to take my own medicine, and I had to realize how to dig myself out of it myself. And that gave me the wisdom to be able to now, launch Healing the Body, which I did during that process where I launched Healing the Body and started writing articles, and then eventually my one-on-one coaching in the Thrive Lifestyle Academy.
Right. Well, and I think that people can appreciate very much, at least I know I do, and Shirley does, the fact that you have gone through this yourself. It's one thing to take advice, especially when you're talking about your body and your health. I mean, you only have one body, and your health is the most important thing. People make a lot of money and they have bad health. The money doesn't matter, right? So it's so important. But when you go in and talk to other people that have never been through what they're telling you to do to overcome that thing, like that's never happened to them before. So with you, it's like you've been there, done that. Like you've overcome it yourself. It's not a book, like you didn't go to college for this, or a classroom thing. Like this is something you really did. And, I should tell people how we ended up meeting you. A really good friend of ours that I talk to from a business perspective almost every single day. I talked to him, and he had mentioned that his PSA count, right? That's what for the prostate, right?
Yeah.
His PSA count was off the charts to the point where he was really scared, and I could tell over the phone with the conversation that we were having, he was very scared about it, because that kind of PSA count oftentimes led to prostate cancer, and he was very scared that he had prostate cancer. But he found you, and to be honest with you, I don't know how he found you, but he found you, and he worked with you for 30 to 60 days. And whatever protocol you had him go through, that brought his PSA count down to not only normal, but very, very, very healthy without any medication. So why don't you share, like, if someone comes to you with a diagnosis like that, like what are some of the first things that you do with somebody? And in his case, what kind of protocol did you put him through in order to get his PSA count down and alleviate his problem without medication?
Yeah. And I had known him by working with him as well. Years ago, I had known him. So we had met a long time ago, and I actually had worked with his lovely wife, who was also dealing with, a different type of health scare at the time. And she was in the program in Thrive, and then he was following along a little bit, but didn't follow along too closely, and then had this scare. And decided, okay, I just need to get on what my wife was doing and get a little bit more dialed into what I need to do. And that's what we decided on. So when he came to me with this, the first thing I think of is I kind of go past the disease label. And a lot of people hear me call them disease labels or, things like that, because a lot of times when they give you these labels, they aren't particularly helpful. They don't really show you. They often create these labels, which often make the person more fearful. It sounds unique and it's something that's scary and mysterious and they don't know anything about it. And for me, I break it down. This is what I do in Thyroid. I break it down to simplicity of like, what's really happening? What's happening inside the body? Why is, in his case, why is your prostate acting like this? Why is it inflamed? Why is it enlarged? What could possibly be happening? So immediately from that perspective, I start to look at, your lifestyle, what kind of food are you eating? What are you doing and not doing in your life right now? And I take a really comprehensive, holistic approach. That's always my goal. It's a holistic approach. It's not a magic bullet of take this supplement, eat this food. In some cases, like if you're having prostate issues, it might be like, well, do I take saw palmetto? Or, some of these very common, and not that those things can't work, but often in and of themselves, they don't, because there's things you're going to need to eliminate out of your life, out of your diet and otherwise. And there's things you're going to need to add in to create enough momentum so you can actually heal something. So with him, I said, simply, you just need to follow the nutritional plan that was set out with your wife. That'll give you a good, strong foundation of making sure you're getting the right nutrients inside your body. You start to nourish and you start to cleanse some of this area. And then I looked specifically at what he was dealing with the prostate. And I thought, well, okay, what is it? What are the nutrients that the prostate utilizes or that it requires, that if it becomes deficient in, it won't operate effectively. We started looking at natural whole food sources and also whole food supplement sources that he could easily incorporate into things like a smoothie, for example. So it wasn't real difficult. He didn't have to do anything extraordinary. We didn't do any therapies really or anything like that. We really focused on his nutrition and supplementation. So from there, I give him maybe a handful, might have been 3 to 5 different supplements to take along with the foundational piece of the diet. And and obviously I said, keep your stress under control as much as possible, get out, enjoy the outdoors. He lives in a beautiful area of the country. So it's like, get outdoors, enjoy the sunshine, things like that, and just kind of relax. Because a lot of times with prostate issues, a lot of it's stress related or can be exacerbated in the symptoms brought to the surface with stress. A lot of times this is what happens with people. People notice when they get health problems, stress often brings them on. They might not notice that, but it's just because stress, what stress does to the body, it usually takes underlying symptoms that are simmering under the surface to the surface. Now they notice them. They might be still there and they don't notice they're happening, but it breaks embers out into a full out fire. That's what was happening with him, right? He probably had some prostate stuff, probably didn't just jump up on him one day and all of a sudden his levels went high or something simmering there. And then he had a stressful period. Maybe it was from his wife too, who had a little bit of health scare. All of a sudden it went off the charts. And all we need to do is bring it back down. So within 4 weeks, actually, he had taken his levels. I can't remember where his levels were at. There were 6 or 7 or something ridiculous. And he brought it to under 1 just by simply following the foundation of this diet. Like I said, a few key supplements, a lot of them he just worked into his smoothie. And within that period of time, I was actually almost sort of surprised too, within 4 weeks that he saw that kind of results that quickly. So it was quite simple in my mind. Anyway, it was quite simple for him to do. And obviously I think he thought it was quite simple, simpler than he imagined, because he was quite surprised that he was able to do that so quickly, especially when doctors tell you that the only suggestions they may have is either you cut it out or you got to take some certain type of medications. And I'm like, there's no surgery required here. There's no medications required here. We just need to make sure that you nourish, detoxify, and cleanse the areas of your body that are causing you problems. And then the body just takes care of itself.
Well, I remember the phone call that I got from him when he said, "You won't believe this." He goes, my PSA level is not only normal, it's very healthy. And I went, wow, how did you do that? And so he described some of, what he went through. And of course I told Shirley about it. And at the time, Shirley was dealing with a lot of menopause issues. She was dealing with a lot of brain fog and bloating. She was having a terrible bloating issue. Like she would have a glass of water and she felt like she was bloated. And she reached out to you and had a conversation. And one thing that you did with her, and I think you probably do this with most, if not all your clients, is that you had her put together a pretty extensive assessment and answer a lot of questions about lifestyle and diet and so that you can get a real, and you could talk about this, of course, but you could get a real vision over what that person's going through, which she did. And Shirley, like everything she does, is very, very thorough. And she did a very thorough job of that. And I remember being on that phone call with you and her and listening. She had you on speaker. And what your feedback was with regard to not just the things that she should be eating or things that she should supplement with, and you can talk about that too. But what I was, I guess, most impressed with is the things that she needed to eliminate. There was a lot of things in her diet that we thought were pretty healthy, right? The average person would think, oh, that's a healthy thing right there, that you were saying, no, you need to eliminate, you need to eliminate, you need to eliminate. And we both went on this reset diet that I would love for you to talk about. We went on this reset diet for 60 days together because I didn't want her to have to cook separate meals. And of course, I had just come out of having kidney cancer not that much before that. So I'm like, okay, well, this sounds like a healthy thing. I may as well do it with her. And I've got to tell you, I can't speak for Shirley, but that diet blew me away. The first 10 days or so were absolutely miserable. Not just because I couldn't eat what I wanted to eat. It wasn't that. It's just that I felt terrible. I felt way worse before I felt better, kind of thing. But once that 10 days was over, I felt fantastic. I felt like maybe I probably felt when I was 14 or something, which I can't remember. But it was the best I had felt in my whole entire adult life. So why don't you talk a little bit about the diet and elimination and what that does to your system in terms of parasites and because I think that's really was a big issue for me. So
yeah. And what I love about that assessment that I had done with Shirley, the Vitality Report, is that it goes really deep and really comprehensive to understand what's going on in someone's life. Most assessments, testing you do doesn't assess someone's life, what they're eating, what they're drinking, what they're eliminating, how their day-to-day habits, what their stress is like. With my assessment, it's a lifestyle, it's a life assessment is really what it is. So, it allows me to see what symptoms are happening inside the body, how the body's communicating to you in terms of what's going on. And the body, all the organs, glands are going to give you symptoms. They're going to give you signals that things are going wrong. But not only that, again, what type of things you're eating, what kind of supplements you take, what kind of water are you drinking, what kind of exercise do you have? Like it's, as you saw, it's very comprehensive. And that allows me to go really deep and understand what's happening with someone and give them a full opportunity to transform their life if that's what they want to do from top to bottom. It's an audit is really what it is of everything, not just one tiny thing in nutrition. It's an audit of everything and putting it all on the table and dismantling it and putting it back together. And in this case, as you described, I think the reason that most people don't get healthy, there's a lot of different reasons, but one big reason when people try to sort of get healthy, maybe like you and Shirley is we're an add-on society, meaning we like to add things on. So it's like, I'm having these issues. Let's add in this supplement. Let's add in this food. But what we don't do, and this is the big fear of a lot of people, is eliminate. And again, when you're trying to heal and you're trying to overcome certain things, you need to get enough momentum in your body. You need to liberate enough energy to start to heal your body. And if you're adding on a few things, a few supplements, but you're still, I'm going to use an extreme example, you're still drinking 3 beer a night, you're still drinking 4 cups of coffee a day, you're still, basking in front of your computer with EMFs on a daily basis, and you're still drinking, you still have toxicities in your food, maybe artificial, sweeteners or, MSG, whatever it happens to be. You're not going to get too far ahead when you don't do that. So when you really want to heal, you really want to overcome something, you have to eliminate all those nasty things out of your life, and you need to bring in all the things that are going to nourish. So it's a twofold thing. Just sort of like when people want to get in shape, diet and exercise is the best combo. Exercise alone is not going to outperform a bad diet, and vice versa. A diet can really lean you up, but it won't help you gain muscle necessarily. You're going to have to go to the gym if you want to gain muscle. You're going to do that. So same thing with this. You got to eliminate and you got to add in. So with Shirley and with everyone that I talk to, I see a lot of people are dealing with digestive and autoimmune issues, and a lot of places where this starts is with infections. And I say the only 2 reasons that people actually get sick, you want to make it really simple, which is what I do. I take complicated subjects to make them really simple, is that the only reason people are dealing with disease or anything that's going on is that they either have infections, which will be biological, what you just mentioned, parasites, bacteria, viruses, and you have to learn how to take those out because not all of them are easy, and chemical infections, which you guys are also familiar with, heavy metals, glyphosate, all these things that have been in our life. A lot of people don't think they have this. I'm telling you, if you lived in a first world country, you've got it. It's happened because it's just something that can't be avoided in the lifestyle, in the way that life, and how the healthcare systems and stuff are set up. You just can't avoid it in the food industry. So you have that first. And then the only other thing that causes malnourishment. And usually the two go together. Once you have toxicities, you can have malnourishment. Those are the only two things. So if you can get rid of the toxicities, which can be a little complicated, as you saw, and a lot of people, they got to go through it. And this is where people stop and they don't know what to do. This is why I coach people through it, because in the beginning, things start to happen, like happened with you. It's like, man, do I feel bad? Is this actually right? Is something wrong? And the whole thing that I want to make sure people understand is that why this happens is because when you start to remove these toxicities, you start to mobilize them in your body and remove them, your immune system is going to react to these toxicities because it's often seeing them as invaders. And really, you're not, a lot of people think they get the flu or cold or something's happened. It's usually not someone catching something. It's usually someone releasing something that's going to create the same exact symptoms as if you caught the flu, as an example. As opposed to removing a virus, you're going to have the same kind of symptoms that caused the pain when they went in the first place. So there's usually a little bit to go through it. And everyone's a little bit different. Depends on how much they've been doing. It depends how many prescription medications they've been on or how toxic their body is. Some people go through a few days and it goes back and forth. Some people go through a lot in the beginning. But no matter what happens, in the end, they keep on falling. Eventually, the same thing happens to them that happened to you. You make it through that first part, all of a sudden, like, boom, the clouds open up, the sky everything starts to shine, you feel fresh. It's like, wow, this is what it feels like. And you can't get to that point without going through that initial part first. I often use, being a man, I obviously don't have a good understanding of this in terms of the amount of pain that someone would go through, but I equate it to when you go through childbirth. If you go through a natural childbirth, there's a pain that's going to come with that when you go through natural childbirth. But in the end, you have this beautiful baby that you get to care for, that you get to spend your life with and get to teach and get to enjoy for the rest of your life. It's the same kind of thing. You have to go through this process. There's no way around it, really, for it to happen. So I want to make sure everyone's clear on that, because this is a process you have to go through. But what I discover with these infections and these toxicities, what you really need to do the most is tackle your gut, which I call the gateway to health. This is the digestive reset diet. Because once you start to optimize your digestive system, and a lot of stuff that Shirley was dealing with, this was just signs that her digestive system wasn't breaking down food appropriately. And there's a lot of different things that work within the digestive system. It's not just your digestive system, your small intestine, large intestine. There's also other areas like your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas. There's lots of things that affect your digestion. And if you don't digest things properly, then you don't get the nutrients from the food. And then you leave food left over inside your body that could be left to rot, that could create these gases like trash would in your trash can, and can start to permeate, create these gases that start to get through your intestinal system, get into your blood, and then start to create these brain fogs and all this different stuff that goes on. So when you start to optimize that, when you start to optimize your food, you start to extract nutrients from food appropriately. You don't leave anything left over for other organisms even to feed on. Because if you have viruses, bacteria, if you have a fungal or a candida overgrowth, or if you have parasites, that's food for them, things that you don't break down and digest effectively. So there's an insult to injury with that. Not only can it create that gut rot, now you're feeding the organisms that you want out of your body, you're strengthening them. But if you don't do this and you eat properly and you slough them out and you starve them to death and you remove them, then you don't have these things that are interfering with your ability to digest, which will create problems like heartburn, like acid reflux, like the bloating, like the general aches and pains that you can get with it. And it's not just about digestion. Once you start to optimize that gateway to health, everything else starts to get better. Shirley saw that. You saw that. Once you start to optimize that, you start to get that, because once you get the nutrients in your body, you start to eliminate those toxicities, the rising tide lifts all boats. Everything else starts to get a little bit better. For some people, they may have to do a little bit more after that. There may be other areas of their body that they need to fill in. But in the beginning, if you don't take care of your gut, if you don't take care of your gateway to health, you're really just putting Band-Aids on things, and you're going to deal with the symptoms for the rest of your life.
If you're fascinated by this stuff, like Shirley and I got totally into this, right? We've been into it since we met Derek, and we're fascinated by it. It's one of the reasons why we started the Lifestyle Over 50 blog, because we felt like there were so many people that didn't know this information. So if you want to know more, Shirley, I believe, I can't see the Facebook feed, but I believe she's typed in the address of where you could go to Derek's page, the Thrive Lifestyle Academy page, and you can get in contact with him. You can, Derek, you have is it a free phone call that you do with people? Is that something you still do with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a 45-minute free program consultation, so where I can discuss what's going on with somebody, what's happening, and to see if I can help them resolve it, based on what their goals are, what it is that I provide, and whether the Thrive Lifestyle Academy can fit, their needs for what they need to do.
Yeah, 45 minutes with this guy. I mean, you will learn so much. You will learn so much, and it will be so beneficial for you. Again, Shirley you should probably type that into the page. I'm sure she has, for sure. What types of conditions, Derek, have you do most people come to you with? I mean, what do you see most often? I know you and I had a conversation a month or so ago, and we were talking about people over 50, and you were saying there's a lot of folks over 50, and it seems like that 50 to 60 age group is really when, in that decade of life, that's when a lot of chronic illnesses crop up.
Yeah, absolutely. I have noticed that over the period of, the 6.5 years that I've been doing this. I noticed a trend, and I saw it mostly in women, but it may be because mostly women had come to me with their problems, but there's things going on with men as well. But I was seeing this, what I call the dangerous decade. And there was this window in the 50s and often mid to late 50s, where I was seeing a lot of women coming to me to a point where they were done with what they were dealing with, and no doctor, nobody was able to help them, and it was like, I got to fix this, or I'm gonna suffer immensely, and in some cases, some of these people are worried about meeting their untimely maker, that something bad was going to happen, and I found that people make it through this decade, make it through it okay, but if they don't, they come up with these problems. They needed to be able to fix them. And so a lot of women in the age 50 range, a lot of them were coming to me. And it was interesting to me of why it was this decade. Why wasn't it, later? You think maybe it's 60s or 70s. And now it's becoming a bit earlier. Unfortunately, women in their mid-40s are now starting to come to me with the same kinds of issues, starting to back up. So as we're seeing in society today, we're seeing more kids that are sick, maybe than we remember from our generation. You don't remember a lot of kids being sick, but these days things are backing up on us, where we're passing down these faulty, we'll call them genetics, and we're not doing anything about it. And these kids are suffering with these things earlier on too. But I was definitely dealing with a lot of women that were dealing with a lot of digestive and autoimmune type of issues. Where there's just a lot of different aches and pains, not anything always specific, just some of the things that even Shirley was dealing with, just some general stuff that was just like simple stuff like, bloating, but then a lot of times arthritic type pain or thyroid issues, which, can be described as an autoimmune issue, just general inflammation in different areas of the body that was making life miserable, not something that they wanted to manage and deal with on a day-to-day basis. So as a result, people that I have a lot of experience working with was women in that age group. I've dealt with people of all different kinds of ages, men and women, but the primary group that I dealt with, just by the nature of the people that are coming to me because of the issues they're having, was women in their mid-50s. So fortunately, digestive and autoimmune is some of the major things that I dealt with personally. That was really what was happening to me. And I'm seeing these days that this is one of the bigger issues. There are so many different disease labels out there, as I mentioned. And as I've talked to you about, a lot of these stem from poor digestion. They start with an infection of some sort, biological or chemical, and then malnourishment kicks in, and then everything hits the fan. And so I'm finding that a lot of people are dealing with those two things that are creating lots of disease labels. There's a lot of people with thyroid issues these days, right? Hypothyroid, hyperthyroid, Graves, Hashimoto's. There is a slew of people dealing with these kinds of conditions these days, and that's an autoimmune condition. There's lots of different ways to describe it. I wouldn't describe it as an autoimmune, but if I'm going to use a disease label that people are familiar with, autoimmune would be it. But really, it's just out of control inflammation due to some kind of infections that they haven't dealt with in their body, haven't cleared, and haven't been able to nourish themselves to a point where they can actually get healthy. So the disturbing trend that I'm noticing, as I said, is that this is getting stronger. It's not relieving itself right now, and probably because a lot of people are looking for answers from their doctors, which aren't trained in taking care of chronic disease. If you want a scary stat, and you can look this up, the hospitals in the U.S. are the third leading cause of deaths a year. Third leading cause going to the hospital, and this is preventable deaths. I want to make that really clear. This isn't deaths of things that people come in or on their deathbed and there's no way to resolve it. We're talking about preventable deaths, like over 400,000 people a year. And the reason I say that is I'm not on a witch hunt or an axe to grind against the system, but I have an issue with people being sick and not getting the help they want and being put on a merry-go-round that does not help them. And so if going to a doctor, you're not going to be able to get that kind of information. You can go to a naturopathic doctor, natural health professional, which again, you have done. They can give you some more information, but usually they can't give you the kind of assessment, the kind of nutrition, the kind of whole lifestyle plan that you really need to do to get the momentum in your favor to resolve something. You get a few supplements, you're kind of on your way, figure it out yourself, check out the internet, figure that, do it, do what you have to do to figure it out, right? You probably dealt with the same situation.
Yeah, with what you were just saying about going to different, even not just medical doctors, but people that I guess labeled themselves as holistic healers or natural healers or all of that. I mean, because they seemed all to be, very specific to one small area, and nobody was really had the knowledge of I guess diet and gut health that you did. And that's what fixed a lot of problems for Shirley and a lot of problems for me. And we've become very knowledgeable. It's not just doing what you tell us to do. It's you teach. What I love about what you do is you teach, and that's information that we can carry for the rest of our lives. And of course, now through Lifestyle Over 50, we're trying to share that with other people as well, and just share the wealth, right? Pay it forward, I guess. But it's so funny, not funny, but ironic now, because when we haven't had the, hey, we're human, right? We like to have a good time. So, sometimes we won't eat very well for a day or two, and maybe go out and have a couple of cocktails or whatever. I mean, we can feel it and we can see it, the result of it. And we go, okay, time to get back to where we were. So it's been phenomenal, learning all of this and now living that life. And by the way, you have a lot of recipes on your website. We've actually taken some with your permission and put them on Lifestyle Over 50. So if you go to Lifestyle Over 50, you can go to, I believe it's Health Over 50 is the category, and there's a little drop down there with some recipes, and you could see some of the recipes that Derek has. They're free to you. You can use them and get an idea of the kind of diet we're talking about, which is very healthy, very tasty. We're not talking about having to suffer, at all. I mean, this is really, and Shirley's become a phenomenal cook with this healthy type of cooking. So it's just awesome stuff. So Derek, before we leave, do you have any kind of closing thoughts here for folks that have been on watching today? Any kind of last minute things you'd like to share with them before we close out?
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, we often talk about remedies. We talk about cures, and everyone's looking for, like you said, the magic pill or something like that, the cure. And I get it. People are busy. It takes some work to change your lifestyle, but as you know, it is more than worth it. And a lot of people are realizing that. And again, like I said, if you fall off the wagon a little bit, the cool part about, the Thrive Lifestyle Academy too, is if you fall off the wagon, it's just like, you don't have to go and find a new diet, find a new thing. You just get back on the wagon. You know what to do. You just go back to it. Or there's remedies and things that you do. But one thing that I want to make sure that sticks with everyone, because we're constantly searching for the cure and things like that. Lifestyle is the cure. Yeah. That's it. You get the healthy lifestyle, that's the cure. And why is it? Because when you do the right things, when you eliminate enough things out of your life that aren't helping you, you put enough of those things in, and you do it consistently, like anybody who has achieved anything, whether it's Tom Brady, who I know you're a big fan of.
I am.
The guy who's got his diet dialed in. There's a reason why he can be 43 and do what he does. And the stuff that I watch him do, I'm like, this is one of the few guys I see actually in the NFL. I know there's a few more moving over to that way, but he's one of the few guys that does the kind of nutritional plan, and that's why, and he's not following my nutritional plan, but he follows is very close, a lot of the same types of principles, only I have the details. And if we want to do anything well, we're going to have to take care of our health, number one. Number two, if we want to do anything well, you're going to have to be consistent with it. Again, just like these professional football players and things like that, they do the foundational things day to day. They do the fundamental things day to day. They don't do all these fancy. Tom Brady didn't become a great quarterback because he could throw long bombs all the time. He was strong. He's consistent. He knows how to read defenses. He was in his craft, and he was doing the foundational things it takes for anybody in any sport, any kind of thing. Doesn't matter if you're in your art, you're a musician, if you're in sports, whatever happens to be. You have to be consistent about it, and you have to do the foundational stuff, the fundamentals. If you do that on a day-to-day basis, make it a lifestyle. And again, you don't have to be always perfect, but if you can do that, this is when things start to change. This is when you start to become better at whatever it is you're doing. So if it's your health, you start to become more consistent with your diet, eliminating things, adding things in. There's lots of other things, as you know, not just diet-wise. There's other things to think about. You talk about mindset a lot. There's a lot of different things in there. There's a lot to be taught. And this is the stuff that I learned over that period of 10 years, the wisdom and the knowledge that I accumulated. This is why I put it into a program where you're not getting this education, this empowerment from anybody else. I felt like this is the missing piece. People are trying to get this randomly through searching internet articles, but they never get it all together. They don't get all the pieces. It's this big jigsaw puzzle that's just all over the floor, and they don't know how to put it together or organize it and get a plan and be a part of a community that's supporting each other in a way that, like I said, lifestyle over 50. The 50s do not have to be the dangerous decade. They don't. Is that the way it's been? Yes, because that's the way we've been treated. That's the way our healthcare system, our food industry, and a lot of other things have set us up to fail. They really have. And we have to be really smart. You need a skilled living plan these days, as you know, if you want to be healthy. If you didn't have the Thrive Lifestyle Academy, we don't know where you'd be at this point in time. It might not be favorable because you need this kind of plan now to operate in life. And I'm glad you brought this, this Lifestyle Over 50 website to real, because I don't want to continue to see people in their 50s coming to me with all these health issues. I mean, yes, I'm happy to support you and move you through this stuff, but I want to see more people that are healthy going into their retirement and in their golden years, because age is not what causes you to get sick. We don't blame this on your age. The only reason that it happens with aging is because there's more toxic burdens that build up year after year. The malnourishment builds up year after year. And as you get older, obviously, it continues to get worse and worse. And then the symptoms come. That's what it is. It's not a chronological age. Now, do we break down a little bit? Yes. But as you know, as I know, at 45, I feel better than I felt at 25. So if it was just all about aging, then I should feel like every other 45-year-old feels. But I don't. And I don't look like that. I don't feel like that because I've taken care of myself, because I've been consistent, because I enjoy this lifestyle and I enjoy eating the way that I do. And again, it isn't about lack. It's not about going without or any of that kind of stuff. It's about knowing what to do in a world that's been set up to make us sick, and being able to get through the dangerous decade and being able to live well into those 60s, 70s, 80s, retiring, enjoying all that money, all that wealth that you've accumulated all of these years, being able to actually enjoy it. Because if you don't have your health, that wealth, as we mentioned earlier, is going to mean absolutely nothing.
You don't have to put up with chronic illness. You don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. You can fix it if you are dedicated and you're willing to spend some time with this gentleman, Derek Henry, again, the founder of Healing the Body and the Thrive Lifestyle Academy. Shirley's put up the information where you can get in touch with Derek. 45-minute free assessment. That's ridiculous. I think anybody that has aches, pains, whatever, that are unexplained absolutely needs to spend that time with Derek to learn the information. Derek, thank you so much for taking your time today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dale. It's been a blast.
All right, man. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Take care.
Can't hold it back.